The DNA test results trembled in Olivia Mitchell's hands as she stared at the confirmation of what she had suspected for months. Her carefully constructed career at Horizon Technologies, built meticulously over 7 years of dedicated work, was about to implode. The baby boy she had discovered crying in an empty conference room 6 months ago wasn't just an abandoned child she'd rescued. He was the secret son of CEO Alexander Pierce, the most ruthless corporate titan in Silicon Valley. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Olivia's modest apartment felt suffocating as she paced across the hardwood floors, the setting sun casting long shadows through the bay windows. She loosened her silk scarf and poured herself a generous glass of merlot from the bottle she'd been saving for a special occasion. This wasn't the celebration she had envisioned, but the revelation demanded something stronger than her usual evening tea. 6 months earlier, Olivia had been working late at Horizon Technologies' gleaming headquarters. As the company's director of public relations, overtime was expected, especially with the upcoming launch of their revolutionary quantum computing platform. The office had emptied hours ago, leaving her alone with the gentle hum of the air conditioning and the occasional ping of late-night emails. The sound had been so faint at first that Olivia thought she'd imagined it. A whimper, barely audible, coming from somewhere down the corridor. Following the noise, she had discovered a baby, no more than 3 months old, tucked into a carrier and hidden in the rarely used strategy room. A handwritten note lay beside him. "Please take care of Noah. I can't do this anymore." Rather than immediately calling authorities, Olivia had made a decision that would alter the course of her life. Something about the baby's wide, trusting eyes and the desperation in that hastily scrawled note had touched a part of her she hadn't known existed. She took him home that night, telling herself it was just temporary, just until she could figure out the right thing to do. "Ms. Mitchell, your coffee." Her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom, pulling Olivia back to the present. She quickly folded the DNA results and slid them into her desk drawer. "Send it in, Jessica," she replied, smoothing her charcoal pencil skirt and composing her features into a mask of professional detachment. The door opened, and Jessica entered, with Olivia's usual afternoon Americano. At 35, Olivia had cultivated an image of polished efficiency at Horizon. Her auburn hair was always styled in a sleek bob, her wardrobe consisted of impeccably tailored suits, and her reputation for crisis management had saved the company millions in potential PR disasters. "The quarterly reports are ready for your review," Jessica said, placing the coffee on Olivia's glass desk. "And Mr. Pierce wants to see you at 4 regarding the Foundation Gala next month." Olivia nodded, maintaining her composed exterior while her heart raced. "Thank you, Jessica. I'll head up to his office at 4. As Jessica left, Olivia turned to the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office. Horizon Technologies occupied the top 15 floors of a sleek skyscraper in downtown San Francisco, its glass and steel architecture a testament to Alexander Pierce's vision of technological dominance. From her 13th floor vantage point, Olivia could see the Golden Gate Bridge in the distance, partially obscured by the afternoon fog rolling in from the bay. For 6 months, she had juggled her demanding career with her secret life as Noah's caretaker. She had hired Marina, a kind-hearted retired nurse, to watch him during work hours. She had converted her home office into a nursery, filling it with stuffed animals and educational toys. She had learned to function on 4 hours of sleep, to decipher infant cries, to find joy in first smiles and tiny milestones. And all the while, she had been searching for Noah's parents, discreetly investigating without involving authorities who might take him away, before she could ensure he'd be placed in a loving home. The search had led her to discover something she never expected: DNA evidence pointing directly to her boss, the notoriously private Alexander Pierce. At precisely 4 o'clock, Olivia stepped into the private elevator that would take her to the executive floor. Her tablet contained notes about the upcoming charity gala, but her mind was consumed with the knowledge burning a hole in her pocket. The elevator doors opened silently onto the minimalist reception area of the CEO's suite. "He's expecting you," said Vanessa, Pierce's executive assistant, without looking up from her computer. The woman's icy efficiency matched her boss's reputation perfectly. Olivia knocked once on the imposing mahogany door before entering Alexander Pierce's domain. The CEO's office was a study in power and restraint, sparsely furnished with custom pieces of Danish design, adorned only with abstract art pieces worth more than what most employees earned in a year. Alexander Pierce stood by the window, his back to her. At 45, he cut an impressive figure, 6'2" with broad shoulders emphasized by his perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit. His dark hair was beginning to silver at the temples, adding to his aura of authority. "The Foundation Gala," he said without turning. "Where are we with the guest list?" Olivia slipped seamlessly into her professional role. "We've confirmed attendance from 3 tech billionaires, 2 senators, and a handful of celebrities with genuine interest in children's education. The press coverage should be substantial." Pierce turned, his steel-gray eyes meeting hers with their usual calculating intensity. "And the donation projections? Conservative estimate is 8 million. If the prototype demonstration goes well, we could push it to 10, Olivia replied, pretending to consult her notes. Pierce nodded, satisfied. "Good, this foundation needs to make a splash. Horizon isn't just about profit. I want us positioned as a force for social good." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The irony of his words nearly made Olivia flinch. The Pierce Foundation for Children's Education was Alexander's newest philanthropic venture, allegedly inspired by his desire to improve educational opportunities for underprivileged youth. The public ate up the story of the tech titan with a heart of gold, never suspecting that the man had abandoned his own child. "Is there something else, Olivia?" Pierce asked, noticing her hesitation. "You seem distracted today. It was now or never." Olivia had rehearsed this moment countless times, but standing before him, words failed her. Instead, she reached into her jacket pocket and withdrew the folded DNA results, placing them on his minimalist desk without a word. Pierce's eyebrows drew together in confusion as he picked up the paper. His expression shifted from puzzlement to shock, then hardened into something unreadable as he processed the information. "Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. 6 months ago, I found a baby abandoned in conference room C, Olivia said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I've been caring for him while trying to locate his parents." The DNA test was part of that process. Pierce's face drained of color. "Noah?" he whispered, the name clearly familiar on his lips. The confirmation sent a chill down Olivia's spine. "Yes, Noah, your son." Pierce sank into his leather chair, the DNA results still clutched in his hand. For a moment, the powerful CEO looked utterly lost, vulnerable in a way Olivia had never witnessed in 7 years of working for him. "Sophia said she'd terminated the pregnancy," he said finally, more to himself than to Olivia. "She told me it was over." "Sophia Zhang?" Olivia asked, connecting the dots. Sophia had been Horizon's brilliant head of quantum research until her abrupt resignation nearly a year ago. Rumors had circulated about an affair with Pierce, but nothing had ever been confirmed. Pierce nodded, his composure returning incrementally. "A brief relationship. Complicated. When she told me she was pregnant, He paused, seemingly wrestling with the memory. "I didn't handle it well. I suggested termination." career concerns, public perception, complications with my divorce. All the usual excuses. Olivia remained silent, letting him continue. She agreed, or so I thought. Then she resigned, moved away. I assumed it was over. He looked up at Olivia, his expression hardening. And now you've been harboring my child for 6 months without saying a word? The accusation flipped a switch. In Olivia, harboring? I rescued an abandoned infant and gave him a home while trying to find his parents. I didn't know he was yours until yesterday. You should have gone to the authorities immediately, Pierce countered. The note with Noah begged whoever found him to keep him safe, to not let him end up in the system, Olivia replied. I made a judgment call. Pierce stood suddenly, his imposing height emphasized by his rigid posture. Where is he now? I want to see him. Olivia hesitated. He's with his caretaker at my apartment. Mr. Pierce, with all due respect, you can't just walk into his life after 6 months of absence and take over. He doesn't know you. He doesn't know you either. You're not his mother, Pierce shot back, his words calculated to wound. The truth of it stung Olivia more than she cared to admit. Over these months, she had grown to love Noah as if he were her own. His morning smiles, his tiny hands reaching for her face, the way he nestled against her shoulder when tired. These moments had reshaped her heart in ways she hadn't thought possible. No, I'm not, she acknowledged. But I'm the one who's been there every day, learning his cries, his needs, his personality. I'm the one he reaches for when he's scared. Something shifted in Pierce's expression, a flicker of what might have been regret before his corporate mask slid back into place. My driver will take us to your apartment now. I want to see my son. Before Olivia could protest, Pierce was already on the phone with his assistant, canceling his remaining appointments for the day. The decision had been made. In typical Alexander Pierce fashion, he had assessed the situation and charted a course of action without consultation or compromise. 30 minutes later, they sat in tense silence as Pierce's chauffeur navigated the rush-hour traffic toward Olivia's neighborhood. In Noah Valley, the sleek Bentley seemed jarringly out of place as it pulled up to her modest Victorian duplex. Wait here, Pierce instructed his driver as they exited the vehicle. Olivia's hands trembled slightly as she unlocked her front door. Marina? She called out. I'm home early, and I've brought someone with me. Marina appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. The older woman's warm smile faltered at the sight of Alexander Pierce looming in Olivia's entryway. Noah just went down for his nap about 20 minutes ago, Marina said, her Spanish accent more pronounced in her confusion. Pierce didn't wait for introductions or explanations. Where? He demanded. Olivia stepped forward. I'll show you. Please try not to wake him. She led Pierce down the hallway to what had once been her home office. The room had been transformed with pale blue walls, a white crib, and a mobile of stars and planets hanging from the ceiling. A bookshelf overflowed with board books and stuffed animals, while a state-of-the-art baby monitor sat on the dresser next to neatly folded onesies. Noah slept peacefully in his crib, one tiny fist curled near his face, his chest rising and falling with each breath. At 9 months old, he had a full head of dark hair and long eyelashes that fanned against his chubby cheeks. Pierce approached the crib slowly, his typical confidence replaced by something that looked almost like fear. He gripped the rail, staring down at the sleeping infant with an unreadable expression. He has Sophia's nose, he whispered, and her chin. Olivia stood back, giving Pierce space for this moment of recognition. Despite everything, she felt a pang of sympathy for the man discovering his child under such extraordinary circumstances. Noah stirred, his little legs kicking as he began to wake. His eyes fluttered open, revealing deep brown irises that blinked in confusion at the unfamiliar face above his crib. His lower lip trembled, a warning sign Olivia recognized immediately. He doesn't like waking up to strangers, she said, moving forward as Noah's face scrunched in preparation for a cry. She lifted him expertly, cradling him against her shoulder and patting his back in the rhythm she knew would soothe him. It's okay, sweet boy, she murmured. I'm here. Pierce watched this interaction with an expression that cycled through surprise, envy, and something that might have been admiration. Noah's pending cry subsided as he nuzzled into Olivia's neck, his small hand clutching the collar of her blouse in a gesture of trust and familiarity. You're good with him, Pierce acknowledged reluctantly. I've had 6 months of practice, Olivia replied, unable to keep a hint of defensiveness from her tone. He's an amazing child. Curious about everything, determined. He started trying to crawl weeks before most babies. A ghost of a smile touched Pierce's lips. Determined, like his mother. Sophia was the most stubborn, brilliant person I've ever known. The mention of Noah's biological mother hung in the air between them. Do you know where she is? Olivia asked. The note made it sound like she was in crisis. Pierce's expression darkened. After she resigned, she went to Beijing, supposedly, to work with a research team there. My contacts lost track of her about 7 months ago. He looked at Noah, now fully awake and regarding Pierce with solemn curiosity. I need to find her. And then what? Olivia asked, the question that had been burning inside her finally surfacing. What are your intentions regarding Noah? Pierce straightened, his CEO persona reasserting itself. He's my son. I'll take responsibility for him, of course. Responsibility. Olivia repeated, the word tasting bitter. He's not a corporate liability to be managed, Mr. Pierce. He's a baby who needs stability, nurturing, love. And you think I'm incapable of providing those things? Pierce's tone was sharp, challenging. Olivia met his gaze directly. I think you work 18-hour days, travel internationally 3 times a month, and have never so much as mentioned having an interest in children in the 7 years I've known you. Forgive me if I question your readiness for midnight feedings and teething tantrums. To her surprise, Pierce didn't respond with anger. Instead, he reached out tentatively toward Noah, who was watching him with increasing interest. Noah grabbed Pierce's extended finger with unexpected strength, causing a look of wonder to cross the CEO's face. I never thought I wanted this, he admitted quietly. Children weren't part of my life plan. When Sophia told me she was pregnant, all I could see were complications and problems. He looked up at Olivia, his usual mask of confidence momentarily absent, but seeing him now, Noah chose that moment to release a happy gurgle, bouncing in Olivia's arms with sudden excitement, as if sensing he was the topic of conversation. We need to talk, Pierce said, his voice regaining its authoritative edge, about arrangements moving forward. But not here. He glanced around the nursery, his expression suggesting he found the modest surroundings inadequate. My house in Pacific Heights. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, bring Noah. It wasn't a request. Before Olivia could argue, Pierce turned and walked out of the nursery. She followed him to the front door, Noah still in her arms. Mr. Pierce, she called as he reached for the door handle. Alexander. He paused, looking back at her and his son. Whatever happens next, Olivia said, her voice firm despite her churning emotions. It needs to be what's best for Noah, not what's most convenient for you, or for me, or for Horizon's public image, just what's best for him. Something like respect flickered in Pierce's eyes. 10 o'clock, Miss Mitchell. We'll determine what's best together. With that, he was gone, the door closing behind him with quiet finality. Marina emerged from where she had tactfully retreated during the confrontation. Dios mío, she breathed. That was the famous Mr. Pierce, Noah's father? Olivia nodded, feeling suddenly exhausted as the adrenaline of the confrontation ebbed. It appears so. What will you do? Marina asked, her weathered face creased with concern. Olivia looked down at Noah, who was contentedly playing with her necklace, blissfully unaware of how his world had just shifted. For 6 months, she had created a life around this child, restructuring her priorities, her home, her heart to accommodate his presence. The thought of losing him sent a physical pain through her chest. "I don't know," she admitted. "Legally, I don't have any claim to him. He's Alexander's son." "The heart knows no law, Querida," Marina said gently. "That man may be the father by blood, but you have been the parent in all the ways that matter." Olivia kissed Noah's soft head, breathing in his familiar baby scent. "Get some rest, Marina. I can handle things from here." After Marina left, Olivia went through the motions of their evening routine: dinner, bath time, a story, a lullaby. With each familiar ritual, the reality of what tomorrow might bring pressed heavier on her heart. As she placed a sleeping Noah in his crib, she allowed herself to acknowledge the truth she had been avoiding since finding the DNA results. She loved this child, not as a temporary guardian or a concerned rescuer, but with the fierce, protective love a mother. The thought of surrendering him to Alexander Pierce, a man who had initially rejected his existence and who lived in a world of corporate calculations rather than emotional connections, was unbearable. Yet as she sat in her living room later that night, researching custody laws until her eyes burned, Olivia was forced to confront an uncomfortable reality. In the eyes of the law, she was nothing to Noah, at best. She was a well-intentioned kidnapper who had kept a child from his rightful parent, her phone pinned with a text message. "Unknown number. My lawyers have located Sophia Zhang. She's in a private mental health facility in Vancouver. Severe postpartum depression. We'll discuss tomorrow." A P. Olivia stared at the message, her mind racing with implications. Noah's mother was alive but unwell. His father had suddenly entered the picture with all the force of his considerable resources. And she, the woman who had loved and raised him for these precious months, had no legal standing whatsoever. As the clock ticked past midnight, Olivia made a decision. Tomorrow she would face Alexander Pierce on his territory, but she wouldn't go unprepared. Opening her laptop again, she began drafting a proposal, a roadmap for Noah's future that honored his need for stability while accommodating the reality of his parentage. If she couldn't be his legal mother, perhaps she could still ensure he was raised with the love and attention every child deserved. Even if that meant negotiating with one of the most notoriously difficult men in the business world. Even if it meant putting her own career and heart on the line. Outside, the San Francisco fog rolled in, shrouding her neighborhood in a soft gray blanket. Inside, Olivia Mitchell prepared for the battle of her life, not for corporate dominance or professional advancement, but for the welfare of a baby boy who had inexplicably become the center of her world. Alexander Pierce's mansion in Pacific Heights was exactly what Olivia had expected, a modernist masterpiece of glass and stone, perched on one of San Francisco's highest hills, offering panoramic views of the bay. As her rideshare pulled up to the gated entrance, Olivia took a deep breath and adjusted Noah in his carrier. The baby was unusually quiet, as if sensing the gravity of the moment. "You've got this." "We both do." The gates swung open automatically, and the driver proceeded up the curved driveway. A woman in a tailored pantsuit waited at the entrance, Vanessa, Pierce's executive assistant, looking as perfectly composed on a Saturday as she did in OFFICEM's Mitchell. "Mr. Pierce is waiting in the solarium. I'll show you the way." Olivia followed Vanessa through the sprawling mansion, acutely aware of the contrast between this palatial residence and her cozy duplex. The house was immaculately designed with soaring ceilings, museum-quality art, and furniture that likely cost more than her annual salary. Yet for all its aesthetic perfection, it felt sterile, unlived in, more like a high-end hotel than a home. The solarium was a glass-enclosed space at the rear of the house, filled with tropical plants and bathed in natural light. Alexander. Pierce stood as they entered, his casual weekend attire of designer jeans and a cashmere sweater still managing to convey authority. "Thank you, Vanessa. You're right on time. Punctuality is a professional habit," Olivia replied, setting Noah's carrier down and unbuckling him. The baby had awakened during the walk through the house and was now alert, his dark eyes taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. Pierce approached cautiously, studying his son with an intensity typically reserved for breakthrough technology prototypes. Did he sleep well? As well as can be expected. He's teething, so nights are challenging, right? Now. An awkward silence fell between them, broken only by Noah's contented babbling as he played with the collar of Olivia's blouse. "I had my chef prepare coffee and breakfast. Please sit." Olivia settled into a chair, positioning Noah on her lap. "Your text mentioned Sophia. How is she?" Pierce's expression tightened almost imperceptibly, stabilizing. "The facility is world-class. She's been there for nearly 5 months, admitted shortly after leaving him at the office. Does she know you've found him?" "Not yet. Her doctors advised against any potentially destabilizing news until her condition improves." Pierce poured coffee into 2 porcelain cups. "They believe severe postpartum depression, complicated by extreme anxiety about her research, and our situation led to a psychological break." Olivia absorbed this information, her heart aching for the brilliant woman who had felt so desperate, so alone, that abandoning her child had seemed like the only option. "I knew she was struggling. The research wasn't progressing as quickly as investors wanted. The pressure was immense. When she told me about the pregnancy, I reacted poorly. I made it clear that a child would complicate things, that neither of us had time for parenthood with the quantum platform at such a critical stage." Noah chose that moment to reach toward Pierce, his small arms extending with curious intent. Olivia, sensing an important moment, stood and approached. "Pierce, would you like to hold him?" Pierce's confident demeanor faltered. "I don't know how." "Support his head and back. There, see? He's pretty sturdy now that he's sitting up on his own." Pierce held his son awkwardly, his typical self-assurance nowhere to be seen. Noah studied his father's face with solemn curiosity before reaching up to pat Pierce's cheek with a tiny hand. Something shifted in Pierce's expression, a softening around the eyes, a slight tremor in his usually firm jaw. "He has her eyes." Exactly her eyes. Olivia returned to her seat, allowing father and son this moment of connection. Despite everything, she felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps Alexander Pierce was capable of the emotional depth Noah would need from a parent. "I had my legal team work through the night. They've drafted temporary custody papers naming me as Noah's legal guardian pending formal paternity proceedings." The glimmer of hope faded. "And what role do you envision for me in all this?" Olivia asked, keeping her voice steady despite the anxiety churning inside her. "That's what we need to discuss." Pierce shifted Noah to a more comfortable position, seeming to gain confidence in handling him. "You've clearly been an excellent caretaker these past months. Noah is healthy, well-adjusted, attached to you. But," Olivia prompted, hearing the unspoken qualifier, "but he is my son, legally and biologically. While I appreciate everything you've done, I intend to raise him myself, with appropriate professional help, of course." The clinical way he outlined this plan, as if Noah were a corporate acquisition rather than a child with emotional needs, ignited something protective in Olivia. "Professional help? You mean nannies? Rotating shifts of strangers who'll care for him while you're busy running Horizon?" She leaned forward, holding Pierce's gaze. "Noah needs stability, Alexander. He needs consistent caregivers who know his routines, his preferences, his little quirks. He needs someone who will put him first, always." And you think I'm incapable of prioritizing my own child? There was a dangerous edge to Pierce's voice now. I think your life isn't structured for it. You work 16-hour days. You travel constantly. Your home, while beautiful, is hardly child-friendly. Noah will be walking in a few months. Running. Shortly after that, what happens to your perfect world then? Noah began to fuss, perhaps sensing the tension between the adults. Without thinking, Olivia reached for him, and Pierce surrendered the baby with obvious relief. Immediately, Noah calmed as Olivia bounced him gently in a familiar rhythm. See? He needs what's familiar. What makes him feel safe? Pierce watched this interaction, his expression calculating. What exactly are you proposing, Olivia? That we pretend you have some legal right to my son? I'm proposing that we put Noah's needs first. That we create a transition plan that minimizes trauma and maintains the stability he deserves. A transition to what exactly? Olivia took a deep breath. To a co-parenting arrangement. Pierce's eyebrows shot up. Co-parenting? With someone who has no legal or biological connection to Noah? With someone who has been his primary caregiver since he was 3 months old. Someone who already knows how to care for him, who loves him, who has restructured her entire life around his needs. She reached into her bag and withdrew a folder. I've drafted a proposal. A 3-phase transition plan that gradually introduces you into Noah's life while maintaining the stability he currently has with me. It accounts for your work schedule, travel requirements, and the learning curve of new parenthood. Pierce took the folder, scanning its contents with the rapid assessment he typically applied to business proposals. His expression remained unreadable, but Olivia noticed a muscle twitching in his jaw, a tell she recognized from tense board meetings. This is comprehensive. I've had 6 months of on-the-job training, and I've spent every moment since yesterday preparing to fight for what's best for him. Fight me, you mean? Pierce's tone was cool. If necessary. But I'd rather we work together. Noah deserves parents who can collaborate, not compete. Pierce set the folder down, his expression shifting to one Olivia recognized from negotiations with tech rivals' tactical assessment. Let me be clear. About something, Ms. Mitchell. I could have sent my lawyers with a court order this morning. I could have had security escort you out once you handed over my son. The fact that we're having this conversation at all is a courtesy I'm extending. Because of your care for Noah thus far. Olivia felt Noah's weight in her arms, the trusting pressure of his small body against hers. She refused to be intimidated. And let me be clear, Mr. Pierce. If you had tried that approach, I would have fought you with everything I have. I would have gone public with how Horizon's celebrated CEO abandoned his pregnant girlfriend, who subsequently suffered severe postpartum depression. I would have made sure every major news outlet questioned what kind of father prioritizes corporate image over his child's welfare. She softened her tone, shifting strategies. But that wouldn't have been good for Noah either. A public custody battle. His life story splashed across headlines. That's why I'm here offering cooperation instead of confrontation. Noah began squirming in her arms, a sure sign he needed a diaper change. Is there somewhere I can change him? The abrupt shift to practical matters seemed to throw Pierce momentarily. I had a nursery prepared upstairs. Vanessa can show you. Olivia stood, gathering Noah's diaper bag. While I take care of this, why don't you review my proposal in detail? We can continue our discussion when I return. Without waiting for his response, she pressed the intercom button Pierce had used earlier to summon Vanessa. The assistant appeared within moments, leading Olivia upstairs to what had clearly been a guest bedroom hastily converted into a nursery. Unlike the rest of the house, this room showed signs of recent, rushed preparation. A designer crib stood in the center, still bearing price tags. High-end baby equipment was arranged around the room, much of it still in boxes. The space had been professionally decorated in soothing blues and grays, but lacked the lived-in warmth of Noah's nursery at Olivia's home. Mr. Pierce had everything delivered yesterday, Vanessa explained, her professional tone softening slightly. He had the design team working overnight. Olivia laid Noah on the changing table, processing this information. Pierce had moved quickly, sparing no expense to prepare for his son. It spoke to his efficiency and resources, if not his emotional readiness. Has he ever mentioned wanting children before? Olivia asked casually as she changed Noah's diaper. Vanessa hesitated, weighing professional discretion against human connection. Not that I recall, she finally admitted. But I've never seen him react to anything the way he did when he returned from your apartment yesterday. He was different. Olivia nodded, appreciating this glimpse behind Pierce's carefully constructed facade. Thank you, Vanessa. Left. Alone with Noah, Olivia took a moment to center herself. The stakes couldn't be higher, not just for her heart, but for Noah's future. She couldn't match Pierce's financial resources or legal firepower, but she had one advantage he didn't: 6 months of loving knowledge of what Noah needed. When she returned to the solarium, Pierce was on the phone, speaking in the clipped, authoritative tone he used for business calls. He ended the conversation abruptly when he saw her. Your proposal has some merit, he said without preamble. The phased approach makes logical sense. But I have concerns about the long-term implications. Olivia settled Noah on a blanket she spread on the floor, placing a few toys around him. What concerns specifically? The legal ambiguity, Pierce replied. You're suggesting an arrangement that has no precedent in family law. You're neither Noah's biological relative nor an adoptive parent. You're essentially a well-intentioned stranger who's formed an attachment to my child. The clinical assessment stung, but Olivia kept her expression neutral. I'm the only mother he's known since Sophia left him. That counts for something, legally and morally. Perhaps, Pierce conceded. But my attorneys advise that any formal arrangement recognizing your role would potentially complicate Noah's legal status and could create problems for him later. Is that their concern or yours? Olivia challenged. Pierce's expression hardened. Both. I'm trying to establish clean legal parentage for my son. Introducing a third party with no biological or legal standing complicates that unnecessarily. Noah babbled happily on his blanket, oblivious to the tension between the adults. Discussing his fate. He rolled onto his stomach and pushed up, attempting the crawling position he'd been practicing lately. Look at that determination, Olivia said softly. He's been working on crawling for weeks now. Gets frustrated when he can't quite figure it out, but never gives up. Pierce's gaze shifted to his son, a flicker of something like pride crossing his features. Persistence, a valuable trait. He has your determination, Olivia acknowledged, and Sophia's curiosity. He examines everything, tries to understand how things work. For a moment, they were united in their observation of Noah's efforts, the legal battle temporarily forgotten. What if, Olivia said carefully, we considered a different approach? Not co-parenting in the traditional sense, but something that recognizes the reality of Noah's situation. Pierce raised an eyebrow, indicating she should continue. You're his father. You have the right and responsibility to raise him. I'm not disputing that, Olivia said. But I'm also the only consistent caregiver he's known. Abruptly removing me from his life would be traumatic for him. She leaned forward, choosing her words carefully. What if I became Noah's official nanny? I could move into the guest house I noticed on your property. Noah would have the stability of my continued care while gradually building a relationship with you. You'd have the legal clarity you want, and he'd have the emotional continuity he needs. Pierce studied her with renewed interest. You'd give up your career at Horizon to become a nanny? For Noah? Yes, Olivia said without hesitation. Though, I'd expect to continue working remotely part-time. I've managed both for 6 months already. And when Sophia recovers? What then? The question pierced Olivia's careful composure. In her focus on Noah and Pierce, she had momentarily pushed aside the reality of Sophia, Noah's actual mother, who might one day want to reclaim her role in his life. Then we adjust, she said finally. Noah deserves to know his mother when she's well enough to be part of his life. I would never stand in the way of that. Pierce was silent for a long moment, his analytical mind visibly working through scenarios and implications. You've built an impressive career at Horizon, he said finally. Public Relations Director at 35. On track for the executive team within a few years. You'd sacrifice all that. I wouldn't see it as a sacrifice, Olivia replied. Just a different kind of success. Noah chose that moment to faceplant in his attempt at crawling, his frustrated cry filling the solarium. Both adults moved toward him simultaneously, their instinctive response to comfort him momentarily aligning their priorities. Olivia reached him first, scooping him up with practiced ease. It's okay, brave boy. Try again. You'll get it. Pierce watched them, something shifting in his expression. I have a counter-proposal, he said suddenly. One that might serve all our interests, including Noah's. Olivia settled Noah against her shoulder, raising an eyebrow in question. The Pierce Foundation for Children's Education launches next month, Pierce continued. It needs an executive director, someone with PR expertise, management experience, and a genuine commitment to children's welfare. He paused meaningfully. The position comes with flexible hours, a substantial salary increase over your current role, and an apartment. In this house, not the guest house. Olivia blinked, processing the unexpected offer. You want me to run your foundation? You're eminently qualified, Pierce replied matter-of-factly. Your PR background is ideal for a role that will involve substantial media interaction and donor relations, and it would provide a legitimate professional reason for your continued presence in Noah's life. As what? His father's employee who happens to live in the same house. As a trusted family friend, Pierce clarified. Someone who cares for Noah and contributes to his upbringing, without the legal complications of attempting co-parenthood. Olivia considered the proposal, bouncing Noah gently as she thought. The offer was clever, typical of Pierce's strategic mind. It would give her continued access to Noah while preserving Pierce's legal authority as his father. It would provide her with meaningful work that could accommodate Noah's needs. It was, on paper, a reasonable compromise. But something about it felt wrong, a solution too neat, too transactional for the messy emotional reality they were navigating. And what happens when you start dating again? She asked bluntly, when you bring a new woman into Noah's life? Where does that leave my role? Pierce's expression tightened. That's not an immediate concern. But it will be eventually, Olivia pressed. You're a wealthy, powerful man in his prime. There will be someone someday. And then what becomes of the trusted family friend living in your house, forming attachments? To your son? Noah had settled against her shoulder, his earlier frustration forgotten as sleep began to claim him. Olivia felt the weight of his trust, his complete dependence on the adults who were negotiating his future like a business arrangement. This isn't working, she said suddenly, the clarity of realization washing over her. We're approaching this all wrong, Pierce frowned. Explain. We're treating Noah like an asset to be managed, a problem to be solved with the right organizational structure, Olivia said, her voice soft but firm. But he's a person, a tiny developing person who needs love more than he needs perfect. Legal arrangements or career accommodations. She looked down at Noah, now sleeping peacefully against her shoulder. I love him, she said simply. Not because he's biologically mine or because I have legal rights to him, but because I've been there every day, learning who he is, caring for him when he's sick, celebrating when he rolls over or sits up or babbles his first proto-words. To her surprise, Pierce's expression softened. "I believe you," he said quietly. "And Noah is fortunate to have inspired such devotion in someone with no obligation to provide it." "That's just it," Olivia replied. "Love isn't about obligation. It's about choice. Every day for 6 months, I've chosen Noah. Can you say the same?" The challenge hung in the air between them, more direct than Olivia would ever have dared be with her CEO in a professional context. But this wasn't about Horizon Technologies or corporate hierarchy. This was about a baby boy who deserved parents, who would put his needs above their own convenience, pride, or legal preferences. Pierce was silent for a long moment, his gaze moving from Olivia to his sleeping son and back again. When he finally spoke, his voice held a note Olivia had never heard before, something like humility. "No," he admitted. "I can't say that. Until yesterday, I didn't even know he existed, at least not as a living child." He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of discomposure. "I've built my life around achievement, control, excellence in everything I pursue. Parenthood wasn't in my plans. When Sophia told me she was pregnant, all I could see were complications." Olivia listened, sensing a crucial moment of honesty from a man known for his strategic communication rather than emotional transparency. "But seeing him now," Pierce continued, his gaze returning to Noah, holding him, watching him try to crawl with such determination, "I feel something I didn't expect." He looked up, meeting Olivia's eyes. "I want to know him. I want to be worthy of being his father, but I don't know how." The admission, vulnerable, honest, entirely uncharacteristic of the Alexander Pierce known in corporate circles, shifted something fundamental in their dynamic. For the first time since this ordeal began, Olivia felt they were having a real conversation, not a negotiation. "That's the most parent-like thing you've said so far," she told him, a small smile softening her words. "Being terrified of doing it wrong is practically a prerequisite for good parenting." Pierce didn't return the smile, but some of the tension left his shoulders. "Where does that leave us, Olivia? What do we do now?" Before she could answer, Noah stirred against her shoulder, whimpering softly in his sleep, the precursor to waking hungry, she knew from experience. "First we feed your son lunch," she said practically. "Then we put him down for his afternoon nap. And then we talk, not as CEO and employee, not as legal adversaries, but as two people who want what's best for this child." Pierce nodded, a hint of respect in his expression. "A practical approach. I can work with that." As they moved toward the kitchen, Noah still sleeping against Olivia's shoulder, neither of them had any illusion that the path forward would be simple. But for the first time since Olivia had placed that DNA test on Pierce's desk, a fragile foundation for understanding had begun to form between them, built not on legal rights or corporate hierarchy, but on their shared concern for the small boy who had unexpectedly changed both their lives forever. 2 weeks had passed since the confrontation at Pierce's Pacific Heights mansion. 14 days of careful negotiation, tentative compromises, and the first fragile shoots of something that might eventually resemble trust. Olivia sat in her office at Horizon Technologies, attempting to focus on quarterly PR projections, while her mind continually drifted to Noah and the precarious arrangement they had established. The temporary agreement allowed Noah to remain at Olivia's apartment 4 nights a week, with 3 nights at Pierce's mansion. The transition had been challenging for everyone involved. Noah was increasingly clingy during separations. Pierce was on a steep learning curve about infant care, and Olivia found herself in the strange position of coaching her CEO on everything from proper bottle temperatures to bedtime routines. A soft knock at her door pulled Olivia from her thoughts. Jessica appeared with an envelope bearing the Horizon executive seal. "From Mr. Pierce's office," her assistant said, curiosity evident in her tone. The entire company had been buzzing. with speculation about the sudden frequent meetings between the PR director and the CEO. "Thank you, Jessica," Olivia replied neutrally, waiting until the door closed before opening the envelope. Inside was a formal offer letter. Executive Director of the Pierce Foundation for Children's Education. The compensation package was staggering, nearly triple her current salary, with benefits that included housing in a renovated wing of Pierce's mansion. A handwritten note was paperclipped to the offer. "Consider this. For all our sakes, a P." Olivia set the letter aside, conflicting emotions churning within her. The offer made practical sense. It would keep her close to Noah while providing legitimate, professional cover for their unusual situation. Yet something about it still felt wrong, too transactional for the complex emotional reality they were navigating. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marina. "Noah restless today. Keeps looking at door. Missing you?" A pang of longing shot through Olivia. This was one of her office days, part of the careful scheduling that allowed her to maintain her career while co-parenting with Pierce. Though co-parenting wasn't the term Pierce's lawyers used in their meticulous documentation of the arrangement. Legally, she remained an unrelated caretaker with temporary custodial privileges that could be revoked at Pierce's discretion. Another text arrived, this one from Pierce himself. "Noah refused breakfast. Is this normal?" Despite her tangled emotions, Olivia smiled. Alexander Pierce, the tech visionary who routinely made billion-dollar decisions without breaking a sweat, was flummoxed by a 9-month-old's eating habits. "He's probably teething again," she texted back. "Try the frozen teething ring in the shape of a star. It's his favorite." A moment later, found it. Success. "Coming to the office today?" Until 4 p.m., then picking up Noah. "Need to speak with you. Lunch, 1 p.m., my office." Olivia stared at the message, wondering what new complication had arisen. "I'll be there," she replied finally. The morning crawled by in a blur of press releases and media inquiries. At precisely 1 p.m., Olivia rode the executive elevator to Pierce's floor, the formal offer letter tucked into her portfolio. To her surprise, Pierce wasn't alone. A distinguished older man with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses sat across from him, both of them rising as she entered. "Olivia, this is Dr. Warren Chun, Chief of Psychiatric Services at Meridian Health Center in Vancouver," Pierce introduced. "He's been overseeing Sophia's treatment." Olivia's heart raced as she shook the doctor's hand. "How is she?" Dr. Chun's kind eyes crinkled with a smile. "Making remarkable progress, Ms. Mitchell, which is why I'm here today." Pierce gestured for everyone to sit. Dr. Chun believes Sophia is ready to be told about Noah, that he's safe, healthy, and being cared for. "And about your involvement, Mr. Pierce," Dr. Chun added meaningfully. "Which is why I suggested this meeting before proceeding. Sophia's recovery remains somewhat fragile. How we approach this revelation is crucial." Olivia glanced between the two men, sensing there was more to this meeting than she'd been told. "I'm not sure how I fit into this discussion. I've never met Sophia." Pierce leaned forward, his expression unusually hesitant. "Dr. Chun believes it would be beneficial for Sophia to meet you, as the person who has been caring for Noah all these months." Dr. Chun nodded. "Ms. Jang has expressed deep remorse and anxiety about abandoning her child. Knowing that Noah has been loved and well cared for would significantly ease her guilt and aid her recovery." "And seeing Noah himself?" Olivia asked. The protective instinct she'd developed over the past months immediately asserting itself. "Eventually, yes," Dr. Chun confirmed. "But we'd approach that gradually, beginning with photos and videos, then short supervised visits as she continues to stabilize." Olivia absorbed this information, her mind racing with implications. Sophia Jang, brilliant quantum physicist, Noah's biological mother, and a woman who had experienced such severe, Postpartum depression that she'd felt compelled to abandon her baby was improving. Would eventually want to reclaim her role in Noah's life. Where would that leave Olivia? I understand this is a lot to process, Dr. Chun said gently, reading her expression. But your perspective would be invaluable. You know Noah better than anyone. Pierce's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. Dr. Chun, would you excuse us for a moment? Olivia and I need to discuss something privately. Once the doctor stepped out, Pierce turned to Olivia. You received my offer? Yes, she replied, pulling out the letter. It's generous, but you're concerned about what happens when Sophia returns to Noah's life. Pierce finished for her. That's what I wanted to discuss before you made your decision. Olivia nodded, relieved he understood her hesitation. Sophia and I were never in love, Pierce said bluntly. We were two brilliant people who connected intellectually and physically during an intensely stressful project launch. When she told me she was pregnant, I reacted badly, focused on the complications it would create professionally, rather than supporting her as I should have. He stood, moving to the window that overlooked the San Francisco skyline. I've had a lot of time to reflect these past 2 weeks on the kind of man I've been, the kind of father I want to be. And what have you concluded? Olivia asked quietly. Pierce turned back to face her. That I've spent my life achieving excellence in business while neglecting the human connections that give that success meaning. That watching you with Noah has taught me more about genuine care and commitment than 20 years in the corporate world. He returned to his seat, his expression more open than Olivia had ever seen it. I don't know what role Sophia will ultimately play in Noah's life. That depends on her recovery and her wishes. But whatever happens, Noah needs stability, consistency, love, all the things you've provided from the beginning. What are you saying, Alexander? I'm saying that the foundation offer isn't just about giving you a job or keeping you close to Noah. It's about creating a framework where you can continue to be part of his life, regardless of how the legal relationships evolve. Where your contribution to his welfare is recognized and valued. The sincerity in his voice caught Olivia off guard. This wasn't the calculating CEO she'd worked for all these years, but a man genuinely trying to navigate an impossible situation with something approaching wisdom. I want to meet Sophia, not just for her sake, but for Noah's, and for my own peace of mind. Pierce nodded, relief evident in his expression. I'll tell Dr. Chun. 2 days later, Olivia found herself on a corporate jet bound for Vancouver, Noah securely strapped in a travel seat beside her, Pierce across the aisle reviewing documents on his tablet. The decision to bring Noah had been Dr. Chin's suggestion, not for him to meet Sophia yet, but to allow her to observe him from a distance, to see for herself that he was thriving. He's getting fussy, Pierce noted as Noah began squirming in his seat, his little face scrunching in preparation for a cry. He needs movement. Flying disrupts his routine. Pierce watched them, a thoughtful expression on his face. You always know exactly what he needs. How do you do that? Olivia smiled, swaying with Noah in a gentle rhythm that was already calming him. Practice, observation, lots of trial and error. Mostly just paying attention to his cues. Will you teach me? The question was asked so simply, with such uncharacteristic humility, that Olivia found herself momentarily speechless. Of course, that's what I've been trying to do these past weeks. Pierce shook his head. You've been showing me the mechanics, feeding, changing, bathing. I'm talking about the connection you have with him, the understanding. I want to learn. That too. Noah had settled against Olivia's shoulder, his earlier fussiness forgotten. She considered Pierce's request, recognizing its significance. He wasn't just asking about childcare techniques. He was acknowledging the emotional dimension of parenting that he'd initially approached as a logistical challenge. It starts with being present, not just physically in the room, but mentally focused on him, watching for his reactions, remembering What worked before? Being willing to try new approaches when the old ones fail. Pierce nodded slowly. The same skills that make for good leadership applied to a far more important context. Exactly. Except the stakes are higher. You're not just building a successful company. You're helping shape a person. The conversation shifted something subtle. Between them, a mutual recognition that despite their different starting points, they shared a common goal that transcended their complicated personal dynamics. The Meridian Health Center was nestled among towering pines on Vancouver's North Shore, its modern architecture blending harmoniously with the natural surroundings. Dr. Chen met them in a private reception area, his manner calm and reassuring. "Sophia is having a good day. She's been told you're coming, Mr. Pierce, and that you've brought Noah's caregiver to meet her. We thought it best not to overwhelm her with too many details at once." Olivia adjusted Noah on her hip, suddenly nervous. "Where will Noah be during our meeting?" "Our pediatric center has excellent childcare facilities. Trained staff who can keep him comfortable and engaged while we talk with Sophia. There's also an observation room where Sophia can see Noah without him seeing her when she's ready for that step." After settling Noah with a kind-faced childcare worker and a room full of enticing toys, Olivia and Pierce followed Dr. Chun through quiet corridors to a sunny sitting room overlooking a Japanese garden. Sophia Zhang sat near the window, her slender frame wrapped in a soft blue cardigan despite the summer warmth. Olivia's first impression was of fragile beauty. Sophia's delicate features echoed in Noah's face, her dark eyes holding the same curious intelligence. But where Noah's gaze was bright with infantile wonder, Sophia's held a wariness born of suffering. "Alexander, it's been a long time." Pierce approached her with uncharacteristic gentleness. "Hello, Sophia, you're looking well." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Better at least." Her gaze shifted to Olivia, questioning. "This is Olivia Mitchell. She's been caring for Noah since." Pierce hesitated. "Since I left him. Since I abandoned my baby because I couldn't see any other way forward." The direct acknowledgement created an opening for honesty that Olivia hadn't expected. "He's beautiful. Brilliant and determined, just like his parents." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "You found him? In the office?" Olivia nodded. "In the strategy room. He was so quiet at first, I almost didn't hear him. I chose that room because it was rarely used. I walked the entire building that night, trying to find somewhere safe, somewhere he would be found quickly, but not immediately." She looked at Pierce. "I knew your security protocols. Knew someone would find him within hours. Why not come to me? However poorly I reacted initially, I would never have wanted you to face this alone." Sophia's expression hardened slightly. "You made your priorities very clear, Alexander. The project deadlines, the investor expectations, the IPO preparations. None of which were compatible with an unplanned child." Pierce flinched at the accuracy of her assessment. "I was wrong. About many things." Dr. Chun gently guided the conversation toward practical matters. Sophia's treatment progress, the gradual plan for reintroducing her to Noah's life, the logistics of her eventual discharge from the facility. Throughout the discussion, Olivia noticed Sophia watching her with increasing intensity. Finally, during a brief pause, Sophia addressed her directly. "Tell me about my son, please. Not the clinical updates Dr. Chen provides, but who he is. What he likes, what makes him laugh." The request opened a floodgate. Olivia found herself sharing all the small, precious details she'd gathered over months of caring for Noah. His fascination with ceiling fans, his belly laugh when played peekaboo, his determination when reaching for toys just beyond his grasp, his particular way of nuzzling into a shoulder when tired. Sophia listened with rapt attention, occasionally wiping away tears, but never asking Olivia to stop. Pierce, too, seemed absorbed, perhaps hearing some of these observations for the First time despite his recent involvement in Noah's care. He has your eyes and your smile. Especially when he's figured something out. There's this look of satisfaction that's pure Sophia Jang solving an equation. A complicated mix of emotions crossed Sophia's face. Grief for the months she'd missed, gratitude for Olivia's care, and a tentative hope for reconnection. Would you like to see him? From the observation room, as we discussed. Sophia nodded, her hands twisting anxiously in her lap. I've been preparing myself, but I'm still afraid. What if he senses somehow that I abandoned him? What if he feels my guilt? He's 9 months old. What he'll sense is that you love him. The rest is adult complexity that his world doesn't include yet. The observation room adjoined the child care center where Noah was happily exploring a sensory table filled with different textured toys. A one-way glass allowed them to watch him without being seen, while a subtle speaker system carried the sounds of his delighted babbling. Sophia approached the glass slowly, her hand rising to touch it as she caught sight of her son. A soft gasp escaped her as Noah looked up, seeming for a heart-stopping moment to be looking directly at her despite the impossibility. He's so big. I left a tiny infant and now he's... Her voice broke, on the verge of crawling, saying his first almost words. Growing into himself a little more each day. Sophia turned to her, eyes shining with tears. Thank you. For loving him. When I couldn't, for giving him what I was unable to provide. The raw gratitude caught Olivia off guard. She had prepared herself for jealousy, resentment, even a mother's natural territorial instinct. But Sophia's first concern was clearly for her son's welfare, not for her own maternal rights. He made it easy, Olivia replied honestly. Loving him is the most natural thing in the world. Pierce, who had been watching silently from near the door, approached to stand beside them at the window. For a moment, the three adults simply observed Noah together, each connected to him in different but profound ways. What happens now? Sophia asked finally, her question encompassing far more than the immediate future. Dr. Chun, who had been maintaining a respectful distance, joined them. We continue with your treatment, which has been progressing excellently. We begin short, supervised visits with Noah, gradually increasing their duration as both you and he adjust. And we start planning for your eventual transition back to San Francisco. The clinical roadmap was reassuring in its clarity, but it left unaddressed the complex human dynamics that would inevitably emerge. Who would Noah live with? What roles would each of them play in his life? How would they explain to him, when he was old enough to understand, the unusual circumstances of his early years? As if reading their collective thoughts, Dr. Chun added, "There's no blueprint for your situation. You'll need to create your own framework based on what's best for Noah and what's sustainable for all of you." The simplicity and wisdom of this statement seemed to release some of the tension in the room. There were no perfect solutions, no established protocols, only imperfect humans trying to make decisions out of love rather than obligation or legal technicalities. I need to see him, Sophia said suddenly, her voice stronger than before. Not just through glass. I need to hold my son. Dr. Chun hesitated. We had planned to begin with shorter exposures. I know what we planned, Sophia interrupted. A flash of her formidable intelligence asserting itself. But seeing him like this, so close yet untouchable, it's worse than not seeing him at all, please. The doctor looked at Pierce and Olivia, silently seeking their input. It should be her decision, Olivia said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. She's his mother. Pierce nodded in agreement. Whatever Sophia feels ready for, we support. Dr. Chen considered this, then nodded. Very well. But briefly, and with support present, Ms. Mitchell, would you bring Noah in? Having you there will help him feel secure with someone new. Minutes. Later, Olivia entered a small, sunny playroom adjacent to the observation area. Noah contentedly perched on her hip. Sophia waited inside, her posture tense with anticipation, Dr. Chun beside her for support. "Noah," Olivia said softly, "there's someone very special who wants to meet you." Noah, in his typical curious fashion, studied Sophia intently. Something in her face, perhaps the features so similar to his own, held his attention more than a stranger typically would. Sophia took a tentative step forward, then another, her eyes never leaving her son's face. "Hello, Noah," she whispered. "I'm your mother." The simple declaration, heavy with meaning for the adults, meant nothing to Noah, but the gentle tone and kind face must have appealed to him. Because he did something unexpected, he reached one small hand toward Sophia, palm open in a gesture that seemed almost like welcome. The tension in Sophia's body released with a sob as she carefully moved closer. "May I?" she asked Olivia, her arms lifting slightly in a universal request to hold a child. Olivia nodded, carefully transferring Noah to his mother's arms. For a breathless moment, she feared he might cry or reach back for the familiar security of her embrace. Instead, Noah settled against Sophia's chest with surprising ease, one tiny hand reaching up to touch her face with the innocent curiosity of infancy. "He knows you," Olivia said softly. "Somewhere deep in his heart, he remembers." Sophia cradled her son, tears flowing freely now. "I'm so sorry, little one," she murmured against his hair. "So sorry I left you. But I'm getting better, and I'm coming back to you, I promise." Pierce, who had entered silently behind Olivia, stood watching this reunion with an expression of profound realization, as if witnessing something that fundamentally changed his understanding of the world. In this sterile room in a psychiatric facility, stripped of corporate power and strategic advantage, he was simply a man observing the primal connection between mother and child, and recognizing its significance in a way his success-driven life had never prepared him to appreciate. As Olivia watched Sophia with Noah, a complicated mixture of emotions washed through her: joy at witnessing this healing moment, a bittersweet awareness of her own uncertain place in Noah's future, and an unexpected sense of purpose that transcended her initial role as his caretaker. Whatever came next, they would face it together, not as rivals for Noah's affection or competitors for parental authority, but as three imperfect adults united by their love for one small boy who needed all of them in different, but equally essential ways. In that moment of shared vulnerability and connection, the first fragile foundation was laid for something none of them had anticipated: a different kind of family, unconventional in structure, but genuine in commitment, built not around biological imperatives or legal frameworks, but around the simple, profound truth that love manifests in many forms, all valid, all necessary, all worthy of respect. 6 months had transformed the rhythm of their lives in ways none of them could have predicted. Olivia stood in the doorway of Noah's bedroom in Pierce's renovated guest house, watching as the 15-month-old toddler took determined, wobbling steps toward his mother. Sophia crouched with open arms, her face radiant with pride as Noah reached her and collapsed into her embrace with delighted giggles. "Did you see that?" Sophia exclaimed, looking up at Olivia. "He didn't fall once that time." "Our little champion," Olivia agreed, her heart swelling with the plural pronoun that had become natural over these months of shared parenthood. The journey to this moment had been anything but smooth. After their initial meeting in Vancouver, Dr. Chun had developed a gradual reintegration plan for Sophia: first weekly supervised visits, then overnight stays at a transition apartment near the clinic, and finally, 3 months ago, her return to San Francisco and the careful construction of their unusual family structure. Pierce had renovated the guest house on his property specifically for Olivia, creating a space that was both connected to and separate from the main residence where he and Sophia now lived. The arrangement raised eyebrows among San Francisco's elite social circles, but none of them cared about conventional expectations anymore. They had crafted something unique, a parenting triangle built on mutual respect and Noah's well-being rather than traditional family structures. Alexander's. Running late, Sophia noted, checking her watch. The board meeting must have gone longer than expected. Olivia nodded, accustomed to the adjustments required when co-parenting with one of Silicon Valley's most powerful CEOs. We can start dinner without him. Noah gets cranky if we push his schedule too much. As executive director of the Pierce Foundation, Olivia had carved out a professional role that complemented her place in Noah's life. The foundation had quickly established itself as a major force in educational equity, funding innovative programs for underserved communities and providing technology access to students who would otherwise be left behind in the digital divide. Sophia had returned to research, though not at Horizon Technologies. Instead, she had accepted a position at Berkeley, leading a quantum computing research team with a schedule that allowed her to prioritize time with Noah. Her recovery had been remarkable. The brilliant scientist, emerging from the fog of postpartum depression with a new perspective on balancing ambition with personal fulfillment. Earth to Olivia, Sophia called, breaking into her reflections. Where did you go just now? Olivia smiled, moving into the room to help Noah with his favorite stacking blocks. Just thinking about how far we've come. This time last year, I was hiding a baby in my apartment, and you were in treatment in Vancouver. And Alexander was a workaholic with no idea he had a son, Sophia added, shaking her head at the memory. Now look at us, the most unconventional family in Pacific Heights. The front door opened, and Pierce's voice called out, "Where's my boy?" Noah's head whipped around at the sound of his father's voice, his face lighting up with recognition. "Dad," he exclaimed, abandoning his blocks to toddle toward the hallway. Pierce appeared in the doorway, scooping Noah up as the child reached him. Gone was the austere CEO who had once intimidated the entire tech industry. In his place was a father who had learned to loosen his tie and get down on the floor for playtime, who knew the words to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, who carried emergency Cheerios in his suit pocket. "Sorry I'm late," he said, pressing a kiss to Noah's head. "The acquisition negotiations are more complicated than we anticipated. Horizon business can wait," Sophia said firmly. "It's family dinner night." The phrase family dinner had become sacred in their household, a time when phones were silenced, work was set aside, and their focus was entirely on each other and Noah. It had been Olivia's suggestion, a ritual to ground their unconventional arrangement in something stable and meaningful. "I come bearing gifts to make up for my tardiness," Pierce announced, producing a small gift bag from behind his back. "For the little gentleman who's about to have his first birthday party. Alexander, we agreed not to go overboard with presents." Olivia chided gently, though she couldn't suppress a smile at his enthusiasm. Pierce's transformation from ruthless businessman to doting father never ceased to amaze her. "It's not from me," Pierce clarified with a mischievous grin. "It's from the foundation board. They insisted." Sophia laughed, taking the bag. "Nice try. We all know you wrapped the board around your finger the moment you showed them Noah's picture." As they moved to the kitchen for dinner, the easy banter continuing, Olivia felt a familiar swell of gratitude. What had begun as a crisis, a found baby, a DNA test, a confrontation with her boss, had evolved into something precious and unexpected, a chosen family, bound not by conventional ties but by their shared love for Noah and their commitment to raising him in an environment rich with different perspectives and abundant affection. Dinner was the controlled chaos typical of meals with a toddler: spilled applesauce, negotiations over vegetables, and Noah's newfound delight in saying no to everything before ultimately eating most of what was offered. Through it all, the three adults maintained the synchronicity they had developed, each intuitively stepping in when needed, supporting each other's parenting approaches without undermining authority. The party planning is finalized, Olivia reported as they cleaned up together afterward, Noah contentedly playing with measuring cups on the kitchen floor. Small gathering here on Saturday, just us and a few close friends. Marina's making that Spanish cake Noah loves. And the foundation gala? Pierce asked. Everything on track for next month? Olivia nodded. All major donors confirmed. The governor will present the Education Innovation Award, and the scholarship recipients are prepared for their speaking roles. I still can't believe how quickly you've grown the foundation, Sophia remarked, loading the dishwasher. From concept to major institution in 6 months. It's impressive, Olivia. I had good material to work with, Olivia replied modestly. Alexander's vision for educational equity gave us a clear mission, and his connections didn't hurt for initial fundraising. Pierce shook his head. Don't minimize your accomplishment. The foundation's success is your doing, not mine. I just provided the resources. You built something meaningful with them. The easy professional respect between them had been hard-won. Initially, separating their work relationship from their co-parenting arrangement had created tension, with old hierarchical habits sometimes bleeding into personal interactions. They had learned, through trial and error, to compartmentalize, to be colleagues during foundation business and co-parents in Noah's world, with clear boundaries between the two roles. After Noah's bedtime routine, a collaborative effort involving bath time with Sophia, stories with Olivia, and final tucking in with Pierce, the 3 adults gathered in the main house's living room with glasses of wine, a nightly ritual that had become essential to maintaining their unusual dynamic. I had a call from Dr. Chun today, Sophia said, curling into a corner of the sofa. He's writing a paper on non-traditional family structures and asked if we'd be willing to be interviewed as a case study. Pierce raised an eyebrow. Did you tell him we're hardly a replicable model? CEO finds abandoned baby that turns out to be his child with former employee currently suffering from postpartum depression, while another employee raises said child and eventually becomes co-parent. It's not exactly a common scenario. Actually, Sophia replied, that's precisely why he's interested. His theory is that traditional family structures are increasingly inadequate for modern complexities, and that intentional family building, creating parenting partnerships based on shared values rather than conventional relationships, might be a more resilient model for some situations. Olivia considered this as she sipped her wine. There's something to that. What works about our arrangement isn't the unusual circumstances that created it, but the intentional choices we've made since then. The conscious decisions to prioritize Noah's needs, to respect each other's roles, to communicate openly about conflicts. Speaking of communication, Pierce said, his tone shifting to something more serious, there's something I need to discuss with both of you. Sophia and Olivia exchanged glances, attuned to the subtle changes in his demeanor. The board is pushing for me to establish a more permanent Horizon presence in Tokyo, he continued. They want me to relocate there for 6 to 8 months to oversee the Asia-Pacific expansion personally. The news landed heavily in the room. Their carefully balanced parenting arrangement depended on physical proximity, on daily interactions and shared responsibilities. When would this happen? Sophia asked, her voice carefully neutral. They're suggesting January, Pierce replied. After the holiday season. That's in 2 months, Olivia said, processing the implications. What did you tell them? Pierce set down his wine glass, his expression resolute. I told them I needed to consult with my family first. That any decision of this magnitude would be made collectively, considering Noah's needs above Horizon's quarterly projections. The significance of this wasn't lost on either woman. The Alexander Pierce they had first known would have made the decision unilaterally, informing rather than consulting, prioritizing corporate strategy over personal considerations. "What are you thinking?" Sophia asked him directly. Pierce leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I'm thinking that I've spent my entire career putting Horizon first, believing that corporate success was the ultimate measure of my worth. And then I found out I had a son I initially rejected, who was saved by Olivia's compassion and returned to me despite my failings." He looked up, meeting their gazes with rare vulnerability. "I'm thinking that no business expansion, no matter how strategically important, justifies missing months of Noah's life or disrupting the stability we've worked so hard to create." The admission hung in the air between them, a testament to how profoundly Noah had changed Pierce's value. "System, what's the alternative?" Olivia asked practically. "The board won't simply abandon the expansion plans." "No," Pierce agreed, "but there are other approaches. I've been mentoring Diane Chun in international operations for the past year. She's more than capable of leading the Tokyo initiative with remote guidance from me. I could structure a travel schedule, 1 week there per month. Perhaps that allows me to maintain my presence in Noah's life while still addressing Horizon's strategic needs." Sophia studied him, her analytical mind visibly processing the solution. "The board won't like it. They're used to you prioritizing Horizon above all else." "The board will adapt," Pierce said with the confidence that had built a tech empire. "And if they can't, perhaps it's time for Horizon to have leadership that understands the importance of work-life integration, not just in policy documents but in practice." Olivia felt a surge of pride witnessing this evolution. "For what it's worth, I think you're making the right call. Not just for Noah, but for yourself. And ultimately for Horizon too. A CEO who models genuine work-life balance creates a healthier corporate culture." "I agree," Sophia added. "And speaking as someone who once sacrificed too much for career advancement, I can tell you that professional success feels hollow when it comes at the expense of what truly matters." Pierce nodded, visibly relieved by their support. "There's something else I've been considering. Something that might formalize what we've created here." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small envelope, placing it on the coffee table between them. "These are preliminary documents drawn up by my estate attorneys. They establish a legal framework for our parenting arrangement, a 3-person custodial agreement that would give Olivia equal legal standing with Sophia and me in all matters regarding Noah." Olivia stared at the envelope, emotion catching in her throat. From the beginning, her greatest vulnerability had been her lack of legal relationship to Noah, her status as just the caregiver, with no biological or legal claim to the child she loved as her own. "Is that even possible?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's complex," Pierce acknowledged. "The legal system isn't designed for arrangements like ours. But my attorneys believe we can create a binding agreement that would protect your relationship with Noah regardless of what happens between Sophia and me, or any future changes in our living situation." Sophia reached for the envelope, opening it to scan the documents with her usual thoroughness. "This is comprehensive," she said after a moment. "It essentially creates a legal parentage trio with equal rights and responsibilities for all 3 of us." "That's the intent," Pierce confirmed. "Noah has 3 parents in practice. He should have 3 parents legally as well." Olivia found herself speechless, overwhelmed by the implications of what Pierce was offering. Not just a continuation of their current arrangement, but a permanent legal recognition of her role in Noah's life. A guarantee that she could never be separated from him, never reduced to a peripheral figure regardless of future circumstances. "Why now?" she finally managed to ask. Pierce considered the question seriously. "Partly because of the Tokyo situation. It made me realize how easily external factors could disrupt what we've built if we don't create proper protections. But mostly because it's long overdue. You've been Noah's mother in every way that matters since the day you found him. The law should reflect that reality. Sophia passed the documents to Olivia, their fingers briefly touching in a gesture of solidarity. "I support this completely," she said with quiet conviction. "Noah deserves to have all his parents recognized and protected." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes as she skimmed the legal language, dense paragraphs of legal terminology that amounted to a promise. "You belong here. You matter. Your love for this child is legitimate and valued." "I don't know what to say," she admitted, looking up at both of them. "Say yes," Sophia suggested with a gentle smile. "Say you'll officially be what you already are, Noah's mother alongside me. Different roles, equal importance." "It's not a simple arrangement," Pierce cautioned. "There will be challenges, disagreements about parenting approaches, complications. As Noah grows and begins to understand his unique family structure, public opinions and judgments to navigate." "Life isn't simple," Olivia replied, finding her voice. "Conventional families face plenty of challenges too. What matters is that we're committed to working through those challenges together, always putting Noah's well-being first." She looked down at the documents again, then back at these two people who had become so unexpectedly central to her life. "Yes," she said simply. "I would be honored to formally become what my heart has known for months, Noah's mother." The tension in the room dissolved into smiles, Pierce raising his wineglass in a toast. To family, not defined by biology or tradition, but by choice and commitment. "To family," Sophia and Olivia echoed, their glasses clinking in the warm light of the living room. Later that night, as Olivia returned to the guest house, she paused at Noah's door, listening to his soft breathing through the monitor she still kept, despite the sophisticated security system Pierce had installed. The events of the evening had shifted something fundamental in her world, transforming what had been a beautiful but potentially temporary arrangement into something permanent and protected. The journey from that fateful day when she discovered a crying baby in an empty conference room to this moment had been filled with uncertainty, fear, and difficult negotiations. But it had also been a journey of profound growth for Pierce, who had evolved from ruthless CEO to thoughtful father. For Sophia, who had fought her way back from the darkest depths of postpartum depression to reclaim both her brilliant mind and her maternal connection. And for Olivia herself, who had discovered capacities for love and advocacy she hadn't known she possessed. Most importantly, it had been a journey that ensured Noah would grow up surrounded by 3 adults who had consciously chosen to build a family around him, not because convention demanded it, but because love inspired it. As she prepared for bed, Olivia's phone chimed with a text from Sophia. "Just checked on Noah. He was hugging that stuffed elephant you gave him. The one that plays your recorded voice when squeezed. Even in sleep, he knows who his people are." Followed by another text, this one from Pierce. "Documents will be finalized next week. From this point forward, all decisions about Noah's future include all 3 of us. As they always should have." Olivia smiled, typing back a simple reply to their group chat. "Thank you for making space for me in your lives. For recognizing that families can be built in unexpected ways. Noah is the luckiest little boy to have so many people who reorganize their entire worlds to love him better." 3 months later, on a crisp winter morning, they gathered in a judge's chambers in downtown San Francisco, an unusual trio, accompanied by high-powered attorneys and a curious but open-minded family court judge. The legal precedent they were establishing was complex, requiring careful navigation of family law statutes never designed for their situation. "I want to be clear about what we're doing here," Judge Rosario said, looking between the 3 adults seated before her. "You're asking this court to recognize a legal parenting arrangement with 3 equal partners, none of whom are romantically involved with each other, all sharing responsibility for one child." "That's correct, Your Honor," Pierce's attorney confirmed. "While unusual, There's nothing in California family code that explicitly prohibits such an arrangement, and substantial case law supporting the court's authority to recognize de facto parenting relationships when they serve the best interest of the child. The judge turned her attention to Olivia. Ms. Mitchell, you have no biological connection to the child in question. What makes you believe you should have equal legal standing with his biological parents? Olivia met the judge's gaze directly. I found Noah abandoned when he was 3 months old. I cared for him exclusively for the next 6 months while searching for his parents. When I discovered his father was Alexander Pierce, I could have simply handed Noah over and walked away. I chose not to, because I had become his mother in every way that matters. She continued with quiet conviction. Since then, I've worked alongside Sophia and Alexander to create a stable, loving environment where Noah thrives. Biology created him, but choice and commitment are raising him. All 3 of us are essential to his well-being. Judge Rosario nodded thoughtfully, turning to Sophia. Ms. Jane, as Noah's biological mother, you had a severe health crisis that led to temporarily surrendering your child. Now that you've recovered, why share legal parentage rather than reclaim exclusive maternal rights? Sophia sat straighter, her scientific mind presenting her reasoning with precision. Because exclusivity serves my ego, not my son. Noah has formed secure attachments to all 3 of us. Disrupting his relationship with Olivia would traumatize him unnecessarily. Additionally, our diverse perspectives and skills make us better parents collectively than any of us would be individually. And you, Mr. Pierce? The judge asked finally. As CEO of Horizon Technologies and Noah's biological father, you certainly have the resources and legal standing to establish a traditional custody arrangement with Ms. Zhang. Why complicate matters with this unprecedented legal structure? Pierce, dressed in his customary impeccable suit, but with the softened demeanor that had developed since Noah entered his life, replied with uncharacteristic humility. Your Honor, when I learned I had a son, my first instinct was to assert control, to claim him as mine and determine his future unilaterally. It was the same approach I'd applied successfully in business for decades. He paused, choosing his words carefully. What I've learned since then is that parenting isn't about control or ownership. It's about creating the conditions where a child can flourish. He gestured toward Sophia and Olivia. Noah flourishes because of these women, because of Sophia's brilliant mind and gentle guidance, because of Olivia's unwavering devotion and intuitive understanding of his needs. Diminishing either of their roles to conform to traditional family structures would deprive my son of essential nurturing that I alone cannot provide. Judge Rosario studied the 3 of them for a long moment, her expression thoughtful. In my 30 years on the bench, I've seen countless family configurations, some legally recognized, others operating in the shadows of our limited definitions. What strikes me about your situation is not its uniqueness, but its intentionality. She closed the file before her, her decision apparently made. Too many children are raised by adults who stumbled into parenthood without reflection or purpose. Noah has 3 parents who have thoughtfully constructed a family around his needs, who have set aside ego and convention to prioritize his well-being. The court finds that this arrangement, unusual though it may be, clearly serves the best interest of the child. With a stroke of her pen, Judge Rosario signed the documents that legally recognize what their hearts had known for months, that family is defined not by biology or tradition, but by love, commitment, and the daily choice to put a child's needs above all else. As they left the courthouse, Noah balanced happily on Pierce's shoulders, Olivia and Sophia flanking them on either side. A photographer from the Chronicle captured the moment, not because they were creating a media event, but because what they had built together represented something important, a vision of family expanded beyond conventional boundaries, defined by intention rather than accident, chosen rather than merely inherited. What do you think, little man? Pierce asked, lifting Noah down into the waiting arms of both his mothers. Ready for lunch to celebrate? Noah looked between the three faces that represented his world, security reflected in his easy smile and confident demeanor. Mama, mama, dada, he declared, his limited vocabulary encompassing the expansive love that surrounded him. And in that simple declaration was everything that mattered. A child who knew he was cherished, adults who had transcended convention to create something beautiful, and a family defined not by who they were supposed to be, but by who they had chosen to become together. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.